In DC Comics issue 23.4 titled Killer Croc #1 from the New 52, it delves into the depressing backstory of Waylon Jones and why he is the way he is. The story starts off with Croc narrating, discussing the definition of atavism, which is when someone takes a trait of an ancestral type. He relates it to Gotham and how it's reverting back to savagery and lawlessness. It then shows a bunch of SWAT officers running through the sewers of Gotham. It's unknown what their mission is at this moment, but Croc notices them and starts following them, all while narrating at the same time. It then flashes back to 26 years ago, giving us insight on Waylon Jones, aka Killer Croc's, backstory. It shows him being raised by his aunt as she's trying to help Waylon clean himself. Waylon is struggling and telling his auntie Flowers that it'll hurt. She stops and tells him he's a little fool with no parents, who's got skin like a lizard. She tells him that the streets of Crown Point are going to eat him alive looking the way he does, as she storms off, making him fend for himself. This backstory helps us see why Croc becomes the monster he claims himself as. However, before we get into the rest of the video, I wanted to talk to you guys about today's video sponsor housing actual monsters, Raid Shadow Legends. You have to live under a rock at this point to not have at least heard of this amazing in-depth RPG. Just to give you a refresher, this game houses over 700 unique champions, essentially a never-ending new way to play the game. Not to mention 15 awesome factions to pick from, including orcs or elves, something for everyone. Choose how you want to play. Do you want to take on one of the 12 dungeons with the boss to test your might in the end? Or do you want to rise the ranks in PvP combat? It's up to you, and I absolutely love that about this game. Not to mention that this game gets constant updates featuring new modes and features to add to the quality of life. You can play Raid Shadow Legends on your desktop or on your mobile, where you can transfer your progress with Plarium Play. With over 400 million players consistently playing and an endless amount of customization, you'll never want to set the game down. Speaking of updates, they have one right now for a series on their YouTube channel called Raid Call the Arbiter, an amazing limited series you can watch, like I said, right now. There's also a bunch of brand new content in the game related to Call of the Arbiter, including a free legendary champion, the mighty orc, Warlord Artak. All you have to do to get him is log on a raid for 7 days between now and July 24th. It's really easy. Use the link in the description or scan my QR code to get bonuses off RIP, which, spoiler alert, is an epic champion Knight Errant from the Banner Lords faction, among other useful things like energy refills and XP boosters. Once you're downloaded and playing the game, come find me under the username Gotham Paladin, and if you're fast enough, you can join my clan. So hit my link in the description. I'll see you guys on the battlefield. And thank you to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to it. Cutting back to the present with the officers, Killer Croc recognizes them, saying that they are all dirty officers. The leader, Jack, mentions to Joanna that he hears something, with the water rising behind them, with it being Killer Croc attacking them all. All the while, Croc mentions that atavism in animals can result in legs on a whale, teeth in a chick, or a human turning into him, the Killer Croc. We then get more of Waylon's backstory, rewinding the clock 17 years back, showing him wrestling an actual crocodile in Florida, which turns out to be a show he's doing for a music festival. He's a part of the Eddie Circus sideshow. After the show, Eddie meets up with Croc and tells him to be gentle with the crocodile since it cost him a lot of money, with Croc apologizing. Eddie then gives Croc his cut but screws him over and only gives him $40 instead of the negotiated $100 they originally agreed on. Ed then goes on to tell him like the he is that Croc pretty much has no other option due to his appearance, and calls him a wimp. He then tells Croc to let the crocodile chew on him more next time so they could please the crowd. Croc then looks at him with pure hatred, and while Ed is making another witty remark, Croc bites his hand off. It then cuts back to the present, showing Jack and Joanne being the only survivor of Croc's attack, with Jack mentioning that Croc tore them all apart like some kind of monster. It then cuts back to 3 years ago in Gotham City, with Batman and Robin fighting Croc. Batman takes him down with the forward tilt. While Croc is getting locked up, Robin goes up to him and tells him that he's not very good at being a robber, mentioning how other crooks usually have wingmen or followers. He then tells Croc that he's not very gifted in the charisma department. He then tells him that he isn't very smart and should just stick to muscle. It then cuts back to Jack and Joanne, who are hiding away in one of the sewer tunnels, in which they meet a bunch of people living together there. Joanna asks them for help and thinks they'll be compliant and help them. However, a little girl in the group whacks the shit out of her with the paddle, breaking her leg. They realize that the group is with Croc, and the little girl turns off the lights, taunting them as she does so. Jack carries her and they try to find an exit. Croc narrates during it, talking about how much his followers love him. He mentions how he saved each one of them when the world washed them away, like the world did to him. Jack and Joanne then find a door they think could be an exit. As they get closer, they realize they have to jump. Croc mentions how he taught his followers how to survive in the sewers. Jack decides to leave Joanne so she can't jump, planning to come back with guns to save her. Croc then goes on to mention how he had to show his followers how to be crueler than the world, to be strong and to weed the weak ones out. As Jack approaches the door, he sees a corpse of a body that he recognizes. It then flashes back to 2 weeks prior, with Jack holding somebody named Houlihan at gunpoint, telling him to take his money. Houlihan refuses and spits on him. Jack, Joanna, and this other guy whose name I don't know proceeds to beat him, with Jack revealing that they are indeed crooked cops trying to keep dirty money, and try to keep Houlihan's mouth shut since it looks like he's planning to expose them. Jack then raises his gun and tells Houlihan that the dirty money would go to the crooks if they don't get it, and then murders Houlihan, asking him where's the justice in that as he throws his body in the water. With the sewer people eavesdropping, it then goes back to them in the present, with Joanne asking Jack what's wrong, with Jack saying Houlihan is delivered right to them. It then cuts to the day before, showing Jack and his crew getting a message delivered to them, saying to meet at the harbor sewer tunnel and to bring money. Jack's friend, whose name I still don't know, says that if they don't do it, they got evidence on them, aka a key, that could expose them, revealing why Jack and his crew went down to the sewers in the first place, to retrieve the key. It then cuts back to the present again, with Jack finding the key in Houlihan's pocket. He looks happy about it, but then turns around, only to see Croc right behind Joanne, killing her. Croc goes on to mention how he can tell Jack's terrified, and mentions how he heard rumors of humans having an innate fear of reptiles. As he chases Jack through the sewers, he talks about how the phobia of lizards and snakes has been there for over a millennia, and mentions how Jack reverts to that quivering mouse from a couple of million years back when he sees him. Circling back to atavism that he mentioned at the beginning of the story, Jack falls into a bunch of debris, impaling himself. Croc then says how Jack has every reason to fear him, as he's a monster. Croc reveals that it was him that sent the note. Jack asks questions as to why, whether it was about the dogs or money. Croc just quietly puts his hand over his face and kills him. Croc mentions how him being a monster is the only way he could survive. Life made him a monster. He mentions how they, presumably humans, made him one. He then goes on to mention how they turned their backs on him and hurt him, betraying him, every single one. He then sits down, showing his signs of depression and despair once more. It then cuts to his childhood 26 years ago, with some kids in the neighborhood making fun of him. Somebody then asks Waylon what's wrong and if Sean is being mean to him again, with him saying that he couldn't scrub his skin off because it hurt too much. The man that asked him the question is then revealed, and gives him ice cream, asking why he would want to scrub his skin off, with Waylon responding saying that he can be normal and not a freak if he does so. The man tells Waylon that he could be a king, a president, and gives him words of encouragement. Waylon asks if he meant it, with him saying yes, and asking if he'll need a one-armed court jester. If you don't remember who this is Houlihan, the man Jack and Joanna murdered. One of the very few people, if not the only person, that offered Waylon any shred of kindness and decency when he was a kid, revealing why Croc lured them into the sewers and killed them. This part really got me. It actually makes you understand why Croc did what he did to these officers, since they're dirty, but not only dirty, they killed Croc's only childhood friend. Croc and his followers hold a funeral for Houlihan in the present, with Croc giving a speech about how people were wrong about calling him and his followers weak. He tells them that they are a part of something bigger. They're a part of his underground empire, with them being his eyes above the surface, and him being the deadly jaws beneath it. It then ends with his followers cheering him on, with Croc mentioning how Gotham City is reverting back to lawlessness, and that it was them that made him who he is today.